I don't mind.
Mr. Chapman,
Evening, sir.
good day to you.
Uh,
Oh, if anybody wants a calendar, we have them for sale. They came in just a few minutes ago. They're available for $10.
2 minutes ago,
Well, a few minutes ago. I picked them up at 4:30.
2024. How much is this beautiful calendar?
$10 to everybody else, for you, 12.
I would have said 15, but
I thought you
I
were
like
gonna
him a
give
little
it
bit
to
more
me
now.
for 8.
No, then I'd get in trouble. Yeah, they're photos from people from Lee. They're pictures
Nice.
of different things in Lee.
Barns and that kind of stuff.
Thank you, thank you.
Your first sale.
Well, technically not.
What? Oh.
Pat was the first, but she hasn't coughed up any cash.
Well, then you didn't just get them 2 minutes ago.
A few minutes.
Oh,
4:30, that's when it.
okay.
No, hour and a half. Hot off the
Pat
presses.
beat me.
I think I actually have
This is
money in
cool.
the car.
Uh-oh.
And cash in the
You
car.
haven't even paid. I'm the first paying customer.
Paying customer, yes, you can say that. You can say that.
Oh, wow.
But
These are
it's-
nice. Look at
It
this.
is, it says. who
Oh, it
they're
says
from,
what
where
it is.
Yeah,
Remittance written.
so,
Oh, that's cool.
If you don't race out of here like you did the other night, I can give you your money, because I think I have some cash in the car.
okay. I know where you live, so I'm not worried about it.
Just add it onto your tax bill next time. You won't even notice.
Harvey Mill.
All right, it's 6:01. Should we go ahead and get started? So I've got some responses from Andy that I shared with you guys via email. So
Did
let's.
he answer everything?
I think he mostly answered everything. I think that
Fill it
maybe
on.
he was challenged somewhat to answer all of the questions, because I think that there's not been great record keeping for, some of the information that we were requesting. So, I guess for starters, we asked to see proposed salary increases for all staff. I think that he was able to do that for the most part. But we also asked for any historical salary adjustments, and that was the piece that he was not able to give us really great information on. So he gave us kind of overview of historical salary adjustments based on, the things that he's aware of. But there's really no, at least my assumption is that there's no good records as to all of the increases over the past few years. So maybe that's something that we need to suggest to the select board, is that we just need to do better in terms of documenting the salary trends
Would be
for our
helpful for
employees.
us.
What's that?
It would be helpful for this group.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Not just us, but I'm assuming that anybody would find that helpful. So we do have some of that information. It looks like all town employees received a 4% COLA in July of this year, with the exception of the fire department, because the fire department has that STEP program. And so they were not included in the 4% COLA increase that happened in July. Some others have received, relatively recent increases, like town administrator got an increase in 2022 and also 23. Looks like the police chief got an increase in 22 and 23. So I think that, we've got a lot of salary increases in the past few years that have happened based on what Andy has shared. No COLA has been proposed by the select board for this year. That doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be one, they just haven't discussed it yet.
That's pretty much always the case.
Why was it, I didn't understand why, was it just the fire department that didn't get the COLA?
They have a STEP program.
But I mean, but why,
The STEP program has built-in increases in it.
but does it have built-in COLA?
No, they have built-in increases, so it could be anything.
But I mean, just like
Yeah.
comparing it to like federal pay tables, because that's what I'm kind of familiar with. I
Yeah.
mean, like you get COLA adjustments, but there's also Like, it's a very clear grid, like, you can look at your pay grade, you can look at how many years of service you have, and you know the number, and then the whole table gets adjusted
For
for
COLA.
cost of living
Yeah.
periodically.
Yeah, so what you just described is correct, that's what's happening with the fire department STEP program. But for some reason, because they have the STEP program, we felt as though they did not also need a COLA
Well, 'cause
increase, which
that's
I'm
what I
not
was
sure
trying
why
to-
the rationale was for that.
Well, I mean, cause it's either like, you know, everybody else needs what they have, or they need what everybody else has,
Yeah.
in my mind.
It would make sense to give COLA increases
Like,
across the board.
everybody should just be on the same program.
That the proposal first came from the fire department, and one of the things that I've said is, if you're gonna do it for them, you gotta do it for everybody else, but we haven't got there yet. So,
Okay,
I can't speak for the other two, but that would be my intention, because you create divisions when you start saying, well, this group gets this, but you don't get that. And of course, they all come.
So once that, you're saying you're gonna have step programs for every department.
That would be mine, yes.
So then are you gonna take away the COLA from every other
I
department?
didn't say that.
Well, that's what's happening to the fire
Yeah.
department, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what happened back in,
Well, but that goes back
Right,
to.
so that's what I'm agreeing with you. I'm
Yeah,
saying,
so
you know what I
everybody
mean?
just needs to be on the same program, and that way there's one
You haven't
COLA
quite done it
for all
yet,
the town
but-
employees.
there's the
If
So
problem.
are you
Not
gentlemen
going to.
suggesting that our recommendation about the COLA should include applying it to the STEP program for the fire department?
No, not necessarily, I mean,
Or not doing it, I mean, if that's what you're gonna do for everybody else.
well,
then-
I just think that, you know, whatever happened previously needs to be cleaned up a little bit,
Mhm.
and it all needs to be standardized, because,
Well, I don't disagree with you, I was just helping, trying to help Stacy with
Yeah.
some recommendations here. So our recommendation would be that they get STEP program B.
They also
COLA
get
be applied to
COLA.
the STEP program.
But also,
And when you switch the other departments, same applies,
yeah, so if
right?
you want to, tell them both things.
Right.
That you think that STEP program should apply to all department, well, basically all town employees. And that the COLA should be used to adjust those particular step ranges. of
If
what-
there is a step program for all employees, I don't know, that is particular to the fire department
Yeah.
because you get certain certifications and everything else and so forth.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't apply, I don't know if you do, for other departments, is it merit increases or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever the step program is for other.
So I would say STEP program, yes, COLA, yes, all town employees, yes.
Mhm.
And if the current fire department's STEP program needs to be adjusted because they've already essentially baked in a COLA into their STEP program, then yes.
I agree with that. I think that, you know,
Right.
the town would benefit from standardizing the pay practices across all departments. It's basically been a free-for-all. Each department gets to do what they want, with the exception of like healthcare and retirement. But, yeah, we need some consistency across the
and I mean, you
departments.
can even, you know, even in a standardized system, I mean, you could, like, again, I'm comparing it to like the federal pay system, because that's what I kind of know. I mean, you can have like a pay grid, and then you can get like a bonus, you know, a $1,000 bonus every year or whatever for being a police officer, or $1,000 bonus for being, you know.
Yeah.
So you can have those like individual job adjustments,
Right,
like
because-
hazardous duty pay,
Right,
whatever you want
yeah,
to
yeah.
call it.
Because not all jobs are created equal. Town
Yeah.
administrator is not the same as
Right.
firefighter service, right? No, I completely agree with that. But whatever it is, we all just need to be speaking the same language.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I guess if we're talking about the fire department, I was thinking about this and, you know, we put this STEP program into place a few years ago. When did we approve it? Like 22, maybe it came into place?
Maybe something like that, maybe a little bit
Okay.
earlier, but yes.
So, like, I think that these pay increases are coming as a shock to us, but we approved this program. We approved the STEP program. And now I feel like it's done what it was intended to do, right? Like, we're retaining, we are recruiting. And now for us to like deny this budgetary request because of the large dollar figure associated with it, I feel would be kind of disingenuous of us. And so I don't wanna approve it, but I feel like with that rationale, like, we kinda need to. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but,
I mean, I definitely, I kind of said this last week, that, if you, if these salary requests, they sound reasonable, and if they're really what the market bears locally and regionally, then, I mean, the town has to keep up with it. If you don't keep up with it, people get mad, people just, you don't build loyalty, you don't, retain people that way. And, I mean, you're kind of stuck with it. And, I was gonna ask you about your,
Which has been the problem.
yeah, which is the
Yeah,
problem.
that's
And
right.
I was gonna ask you about your revenue calculations, because, but I can get to that in a second. But, if you don't do something to stay on top of that, you're gonna get behind and everybody's gonna leave. And whether that means, raising taxes more, which I don't think anybody in town really wants to do, or looking for other sources of revenue, other types of taxes or fees, like, push along development a little bit, like keep our fingers crossed for Starbucks or something, Chick-fil-A. Right, I know,
Yeah.
I'll send my teenager, he'll shake down the Chick-fil-A people for you. But yeah, I mean, I feel like something needs to be done about that, because, I mean, in my mind, like, taking care of your personnel is one of the biggest and most important things that an organization can do.
And safety is
Well, and safety,
basically number one, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Police and fire,
Police,
really,
fire,
I mean,
that's- yeah.
if that
here's what I would suggest.
goes downhill, then.
So I think that my recommendation would be to, honor the commitment that we made as part of the STEP program for those salary increases for the people that have, stayed and for the people that we're recruiting, because they're coming into our town with the expectation that they're gonna be adhering to this STEP program in terms of advancement and salary. But then also, like we discussed before, to have the town strongly start to consider a consolidation with some other towns. And like, because this is not sustainable. Like, we're gonna say yes this time, next time, it's not gonna be yes. And then some really hard decisions are gonna have to be made if we don't make some drastic changes. Pat, I see you over there, there's some like wheels turning,
Well,
share
I'm
with
trying to
us.
figure out why I'm trying to see the connection between the STEP program and the raises.
So I
The
asked
STEP
Andy,
program's already in place, and this would essentially just move it up.
so I asked Andy,
It was
like,
just done,
what are these
right?
salary increases for the fire department? Are
That's
they market rate adjustments, or are they in accordance with the STEP program? And he says it's his understanding that these increases are in accordance with the STEP program.
What does that mean? People are moving up steps, or is like, step one used to be $20 an hour and it's now 25?
So that's a good question, and I don't have an answer to that. But
Yeah, my
I know it's
impression
tenure.
is that.
That's,
But-
yeah, I
I mean,
thought
I
we
think
were
it's
just moving
kind
the
of
whole
maybe
STEP
almost a
program up
silly
18%.
name. There should just be like a pay table.
Yeah.
And, whether you call it the STEP program or whatever.
I
It's
thought
the pay
from that
table.
comment that was the police chief, that was in Andy's notes, it was an 18% across the board.
Fire chief.
so you're
Excuse me,
thinking the whole STEP program has been adjusted 18%, not
That
just
was
people
my,
are.
is that what you understood?
There is a grid. The thing is, the difference might be that he's hiring lieutenants, which he didn't necessarily have before, as far as I know.
Yeah, we've only got one lieutenant right now.
But are we
pretty sure.
changing the grid, or are we moving everybody up the grid? Because what he said when he was here was he wanted everybody, the lowest paid people to be making $25 an hour. But does that just mean he's moving them up in the table, or is he moving the table?
I cannot answer that.
Let me see if there was any discussion about it in his materials, Pat.
It didn't say anything. So I think he's,
Adjusting the grid?
I think he's adjusting the grid. Because the steps on the step relate to seniority, do they not?
I think seniority and like additional training hours that they perform.
So giving somebody a raise because he doesn't make enough money just means you're gonna change the grid, not.
The thing you have to be conscious of is you need to have that STEP program in terms of the grid to see, so.
So Chris, while you're doing that, my advice, my advisory piece, which I think will stand regardless of what you read on your laptop, is that I think the conversation with the fire department has to continue. I don't think we can either say yes or no at this point. Because the piece that I keep coming back to is that their total budget request increase was 43%. And I know he came here and he explained his request, but I feel like there is more to the story, and maybe I just missed it. Maybe I was not paying proper attention,
Well,
or,
it is nebulous. and-
Maybe,
and-
maybe we should
like, it
ask
wasn't
Scott to
explained
come
the
in
email,
and,
or it wasn't
again,
explained by
Well,
the email.
we have to present,
or
Stacy has
ask,
to present.
Stacy ask the question, say,
Stacy has to present Monday night.
Yeah,
right,
We have like,
no,
No
we have
time.
this,
this is it.
yeah,
So we have to take a position whether we have complete information or not, unless you plan to get complete information and meet again before Monday.
So if you look at his increases,
well, I mean,
You know,
maybe
it's-
he's here.
it's his sal, I don't think he's here, it's
No.
his salary. Firefighter wages are up 200,000, which is 100% increase, or 95.27%. And then part-time firefighter wages are up 70,000. So that's what's driving his budget.
He said it's an 18% increase. You know.
Wow.
Did you see the notes?
Isn't he
To get
hiring
it
more
up
people?
to,
Yeah,
we're
that's
hiring
what,
2 more employees.
I missed
Yeah.
his thing, that's why I'm,
So Eric's right, it's 43.09%.
so the bulk of the increase is because he's trying to hire higher level employees?
He's trying to hire an employee.
that will stay.
the bulk of it is
that
he's
you
trying to
can
jack
get.
everybody's wages up 18%, including himself,
And hire more people.
and hire more
Yeah.
people. Yeah, he's hoping this will help him hire more people.
Yeah, I think you're right, I think it is an increase to the overall grid, this is not people going up the step. He's asking, so I'm going back to an original email from October, so asking for an 18.7% increase in pay for all employees, and show the 2 open positions as lieutenants to help attract lateral transfers from other departments while bringing in experienced personnel. Provides us with an officer on every call, so I think that's what he's trying to do, that's why they're bringing in 2 more full-timers, so they can have full-time employees on every shift.
Yeah, because recently he's had 4 full-timers, but 2 of them left, so he's replacing those 2.
Yeah.
So,
What are your thoughts, Mr. Rugby?
It's gonna be,
let me pass this out. This is my Pat Barber sheet. So,
I didn't get to mine.
well, you're the one that asked for it.
he named it after you.
Thank you.
So
So
at some
it's-
point, I hope someone can explain that revenue email that we got.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that too.
Which revenue email was that?
The
Oh.
one that you forwarded to everybody that says, I don't understand what that's telling us.
What we get.
Not
from
much.
Oh, thank you.
Well, yeah, because that's what I was gonna ask. So it was like 1.9 million is the revenue, but then like the budgets we're looking at are significantly larger than
Yes.
that.
Well, one thing that's missing in there, he doesn't have a budget in for what the taxes that will bring in, so that makes it all kind of totally skewed. But you can look in terms of what they put in for anticipated revenue. So, yeah, you can just look at the lines, don't look at the bottom, because it's gonna be skewed by, what, 17 million or whatever, because they didn't put in a budget for the taxes coming in, so.
17 million.
So, but this is, just so you know what this is numbers, the column 2023, 2024 is tied out to the tax rate that we just set. So, and then the 2024-25 is based on what he provided in terms of sheets. The other thing that
That's
is.
the budget as it stands at the moment.
Yeah, and the other thing is, just so you know, the ones for the capital reserve funds are from the financial planning tool. So,
Is John going to speak to that tonight?
I don't know if he can, it's a public meeting, but some of those need to be reviewed by the select board.
But we're not going to do those tonight.
It's up to the group what you want to do. The other thing, and I'll reiterate what was said before in terms of looking at, if you look at the revenue that's coming for the town, it's relatively stagnant. Expenses are going up, so we have to look at other ways. And one of the things that John and I have chatted about is, before COVID hit, we were exploring something with Madberry in terms of doing services. John also said something about in terms of purchasing, when you go out to buy something, if you're with a larger group, you get probably a better price. But I think the town needs to explore. Madberry is kind of, like, in my eyes, the perfect choice. Everything that they do is kind of part-time. They have part-time police department, part-time fire department. Their trash pickup is done by a third party. Their highway department stuff is done by a third party. So it might be something to explore in terms of maybe we start with the transfer station and they use our transfer station. They expressed an interest in that, but then COVID hit and kind of everything died. But if we can say, we already run the facility, what would be the additional charge, whatever it is, plus whatever MSW they drop off. So it's something to explore, but the revenue side on the town it's pretty much stagnant. There's no growth there. You get a little bit of growth in cars. During COVID, that dropped off because there was no cars really to buy. If they were wicked expensive. So I think that's one of the things that groups should kind of consider in terms of telling the select board, pursue these other avenues. And if it's not Madberry, maybe check out some other particular place. I don't think we do well against Durham, but maybe there's another town, I don't know. But exploring those would be best. So. And as you can see from the bottom line, it's not a happy bottom line. The evaluation in lines 91 and 92, that's kind of a conservative effort, conservative number from Karen Rossi. So far this particular quarter, she's brought in almost $4 million, or there's $4 million extra evaluation. Second and third quarter are usually slow. Fourth is probably large as well. So I kind of went with, double whatever the first quarter was. Those are all guesstimates. The county tax, that's a guesstimate. We will not have numbers for that until January. Same with the school tax. State education tax, we never know that until, way later. So that's what the numbers are.
So as it sits at the moment, the town portion of the tax rate would go up 25%.
No, it would be $25.37. We'd have
No,
to
but I
raise.
meant the line below that, the town rate, the increase in.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Would be 25%.
Yeah, well, you have to raise, if you look up on line 76, you'd have to raise over $1 million extra over last year. And there's not a lot of ifs in there, so this is not like gospel, but it gives you an idea in terms of it's not good.
I've always found this analysis helpful. That's why he calls it mine. But now, this still doesn't include, it includes the pay increases for the firemen, but it does not include the benefit.
I'm not sure if that's in there or not.
So that is mostly correct, Pat. So one thing that Andy mentioned is that on this insurance worksheet that we
Yes.
got
Yes.
a few weeks ago, so he has allocated funds for one placeholder employee, which presumably would be one of the new hires that's gonna be in the fire department, but then we would have to add in an additional new hire, and that person has not been incorporated here into these figures.
That's
So,
another, what, $35,000?
another estimated $35,000, if we're estimating the family plan. Also, Andy mentioned that corresponding increases for retirement and Medicare and Social Security taxes have not been included in his financial administration budget. And so if we approve these salary increases for the fire department, then those figures will also need to be adjusted up accordingly.
Other thing to be aware of is the ancillary expenses are not been allocated to the library yet. So they're in Andy's budget. So if you look at the library, it looks like last year they were 281,000, now they're 225. You probably have to add like 70,000 to their number. That's just my guesstimate.
Doesn't change the bottom line.
It doesn't change the bottom line, it's just where it's
Just those
allocated.
things, yeah.
But when you look at it, oh, look, the library is spending 56, no, they're not.
Yeah.
They're spending more.
Also, we have a large increase already estimated for increases in healthcare premiums that we're gonna have to be paying.
Scott, another planning number that you've given us sometimes is how much of a change do we have to make to impact the tax rate $1 or, I mean, how, do you remember what the number is?
It's like, for every 100,000 you drop off, it drops to like a quarter, maybe 27 cents now. That's that particular range. So if you wanna
Quarter per thousand.
reduce, yeah, $1.75, so that's 1, 2, 3, 7, you have to drop $700,000 to make it no tax increase.
So essentially denying all increases across the board.
Yeah.
But that keeps your tax rate at the same level.
Yep.
You're gonna anticipate something, but, so let's say you dropped it like 3%, if you said, 3% is acceptable, that's 75 cents, so that's like that's 400,000.
How much is the paving budget?
How much is the what budget?
Paving budget.
I know,
The reason we're
Of
laughing
course.
is we always pick on the paving budget.
Well,
But
it's an
that's-
easy thing, but
yeah,
Paving budget is $300,000, up from $200,000 requested last year.
crude is coming down. It's supposed to come down a little bit more, so,
I think we whacked him for $100,000 last year.
I think so
Okay.
too. Poor Steve.
he's also gonna get $21,000 extra from the state, a one-time payment. It's part of the House bill, whatever it was. And they've spread out $10 million between all the towns. So Lee's share is a little over 21,000. So it has to be used for highway type stuff, so.
Well, just to get us started, I'd take $100,000 out of the paving budget. Since we do that to the poor guy every year.
unfortunately, but yeah.
And my road already got paved, so I don't care.
Do we need to consider,
You're on record saying that, Pat, so.
do we also need to consider, of course, Scott requested it, and I'm sure that they need that for those increases, but considering part of it this year and not
Part of,
the entire
What?
increase
for,
that he's asking for.
Yeah,
for the fire department?
Right. I don't know. If it's the whole step program that he did it to, and not just, individuals that we needed to
Yeah.
definitely honor, is that something to consider? Of course he asked for it, and he should.
Yep.
That's his job.
Yep.
Yep.
But can we make it work, but give half or 3/4 of what,
Yep.
Well,
The board told him to ask for what he thinks he needs.
yep.
right,
So he's doing what he
Exactly.
was told,
exactly.
which, the port, and probably more than these other people, but he is, in my opinion, stressed out because he's not had
Yeah.
enough staff and he tries to cover everything
He is.
and he's burning himself out. So it's kind of like the chief. The chief is now down, he's got 5 officers now and one's going out.
You're talking
Police.
police versus
Police,
fire
police.
chief.
The police.
The
But,
police chief.
so he's got, I believe, 4 people trying to cover 24-hour shifts.
Right,
And they're gonna knock themselves out. They've got 2 people, I think, coming. But they won't come back until like May or June. So he's got limited number of people covering all these particular shifts, and he's burning
Right.
himself out too. So, you
And
know.
if it's affecting that, then of course we would need to pay it. If it's increasing what we currently have, or is this money going to get the people that he needs, you know?
My impression was that he has some guys that are making maybe $21 an hour, and he wants them to be making 25.
Mhm.
That was part of his prime
Right.
motivation.
Yeah.
So.
And everybody's gotta go up along with him.
Right.
So
So,
his
and they
people-
should be making that, that's
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
question. The question is, can we, I mean, either we raise the taxes or, but can we do it in steps, or is it like, if we do, then we're gonna lose those
Well,
people, which is.
he needs people. The problem is,
Absolutely.
and he's kind of, at least for the police chief, he's trying not to headhunt people, but other towns have been headhunting our staff. Like, we lost 2 officers just recently that went to Brentwood.
Right.
So Brentwood's offering them more money, closer to.
Sign-on bonuses.
I don't know if they got a
Everything.
sign-on bonus. But the problem is, he needs to attract people to, fill his particular shifts. And if he's not competitive, they're not gonna go here.
Right.
So, but the thing is, can you compete with a Portsmouth? You can't. Can you compete with a Dover? No, you can't. Can't compete with a Rochester either. So, how far up do you go? Because we raise wages, they raise wages to clean out or steal our people, then this escalation, where does it stop?
It's a small town, we need, I mean,
So,
we're gonna get either the younger crowd that's coming in and we're training, or the older crowd that's actually maybe semi-retired, and that's what we've been doing,
well, we take them.
trying to.
We have a very good reputation in the police and fire department that we train our people great. So they come
And
here,
then
they
they
get the
wanna-
experience, then they go someplace.
someplace. where-
Which, I don't behoove, I'm not against them moving, that's their personal thing, but how do we compete? How do we offer those particular benefits?
And we don't have the youth programs that we used to
No.
for fire
No.
and so forth.
No. So it's difficult. The other thing on the other side, this is where I usually come in, I'm usually the chopper. The increase this last year to tax rate is 8.6%, I believe. So how much more can you tax people before they say, and the thing is, if we start taxing too much, the elderly people on fixed incomes, they're gonna have to sell and gonna move out. And then people with children, I'm not against children, but they're gonna come to the school district, which is gonna make it even worse.
And it's the services that
So,
drives it up.
so
The tax doesn't even cover the
No.
cost of the services.
I think it's like, what is it, John, it's like, to cover taxes that we get from one house is like point something children. So if they come in with one, we're losing, come in with 2 or 3, we're,
It's gotten so big and depressing, I haven't.
it's having to.
It's definitely upside down.
So there's a benefit to the town in the long run to keep these people in their homes, but you
Yes.
can't keep them in their homes. We had a lady this, 2 years, no, it was last, 2 years ago.
With
when we
the
did that.
increase,
Yeah, we had an elderly lady come in, she
Yeah.
had never got a tax bill, and she got a tax bill for almost $1,200. And she came in and had conversations, I believe, with Andy, and she said, what do I do? Do I pay this, or do I pay my, medicines and my food? We actually abated her, and this particular year, she didn't get any tax bill. But it's people like that,
Because you had to adjust that.
well, we didn't
Well,
do the elder exemption
right.
at the same time, so that was us, but.
Right. Now we know.
But it's those kind of people, and if we push her out of her home, she's gonna sell it, and somebody else is gonna move in that's got 2.3 kids, and it's even gonna be the situation even worse. So,
Okay, Scott, you mentioned that the numbers in here for the capital reserve fund additions came from the financial planning
yeah,
tool?
and the board hasn't reviewed those lately.
Those numbers, some of those are significantly
Oh, yes.
higher than last year, which is
Yes.
adding to the problem that we're trying to fix tonight.
Yep,
I'm sorry, I missed the first part. What are
Okay,
you talking about?
for example, if you look at line 36, fire equipment capital reserve fund, last year, we budgeted, we put 175 in it. This year, the number's 275. So there's 100 grand there. The highway bridge trust fund
Yep.
There's another 120 there, there's 160 in the library. So that's part of the number that we're trying to cut, isn't
Mhm.
it? So those numbers.
That was added,
Yeah, those four together are more than,
I thought those would be separate warrant articles.
well, they're separate warrant articles, but in terms of us looking at how many dollars we need to cut to get to a more reasonable tax rate, if we just put the capital reserve fund additions, cover your ears, John, back to what they were last year.
He's got a spreadsheet for that.
I know he does. We would have fixed a lot of our problem, because what the impact is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, if we took those increases out and just looked at the increases to the operating budget,
Mhm.
we are almost at a point where we have an increase in the budget that's tolerable.
It would be about 3.7%,
Yeah, so,
about.
Okay, so Scott, your tax rate increase for the town rate,
Yep.
the 25% that you're estimating is increases in the operating budget plus proposed warrant articles.
Yep.
That's cumulative, sum total, 25% increase if we approve everything as it's been
Correct.
but I
proposed
just want
today.
to point out that there's the numbers that Scott's dropped in here, which the select board has not yet discussed,
Yeah.
are dramatically higher than the numbers we had last year.
In terms of the CIP contributions.
Right.
Which-
So,
Yeah,
Which
Well-
was dramatically higher than the year before, which was dramatically higher than the year before that. That's what that chart is.
yeah, the chart John just gave me is the growth in the capital reserve funds.
And one of the things that John and I discussed last night was the board has to go through the financial planning tool and look at not just next year, but all the forward years, to say, okay, are we gonna actually do this particular thing, whatever it is? If we are, then we have to save for it. So right now, all the particular departments' wants are kind of in there, but some of these there, and that Pat, you identified as, to do what we want to do in those financial planning tools, that's what you need to put in.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying,
But-
if our goal here tonight is to get to an operating budget number that is maybe something we can live with.
Yep,
One approach is to say, well, let's make an assumption that those numbers are gonna be the same as they were last year. And that makes the change of the increases in the operating budget possibly more tolerable.
yeah, I agree. I think that we should, it's a two-pronged approach, I think, is what we need to take. So I agree with you that, like, for the CIP, let's consider just reverting back to prior year's figures. But I still think that we need to do something with the operating
Oh,
budget.
I agree, but I
Yeah.
wanna just, and I will
We
tell you
have
that
to
the library, what's the name of the girl that comes to the meetings? Emily. Emily said they're gonna ask for 320 this year for a warrant article.
Not the 365 that's here?
That's from the financial planning tool. Last year they asked for 200 and it was on board an article. This year they're gonna
Okay.
ask for over 3. I'd still like to pay the $100,000.
Poor Steve. Well, in terms of like the fire salaries, I think, one of the things that we talked about last time was, people talk, and we've got all these increases that are being proposed for firemen, but no increases that are being proposed largely for police or for highway department. And so I think that we probably need to rethink that and say like, okay, if we're gonna reject the fire department's proposals and bring those down a few notches, then what are we gonna do to help some of the other departments? And maybe that's like a COLA proposal that we come up with and say, everybody besides the fire department is gonna get a COLA increase. I know that that's kind of
But they kind of do that anyway.
not in line with what we were talking about, but
Well, no, it is kind of, because like I was saying, it's all kind of cleaning up from what was done in the past.
Yeah.
So if you're bringing everybody, like the STEP program in line with what
Yeah.
everybody else is doing, whether that includes a COLA or it doesn't, you know.
Yeah.
It's almost, I don't know if arbitrary is the right word, but it all kind of.
It all
it's in the
evens out.
wash, Yeah.
Yeah,
So if we reduce, well, the transfer station went up $5, but if we make the transfer station, the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund, Highway Department, the Highway Bridge, Fire Department cisterns, Fire Department equipment, and accrued benefits to what they were last year, your increase is 5.19%. Town goes from 25% increase to 15.83%. So it's a little bit better.
why do we have an increase in the accrued benefits capital reserve fund? I thought that we had done away with like any promise of payment for,
Yeah, do we have that
You
anymore?
have to have that,
You have to have that.
yeah. When people leave,
So that's for anybody, it's for the total in the town?
Yeah.
Okay.
so,
I thought that was a benefit that we were no longer offering for some reason.
no, it's when, if somebody leaves, there's a payout that has to be paid out in terms of their vacation and their sick time.
Yep,
So there is a trust fund for that, which John and his other two trustees manage. So the town pays for it, and then I believe at the end of the year, John, is that still the case? We submit things to get reimbursed out of that particular fund.
like what's our liability
But
today for
when-
unaccrued?
I
Or
do
for
not
accrued
know the
benefits.
answer. Previous years, it's been 120, 130,000. It was way more until one employee left.
Right, that's what I
Yeah.
thought, we had
So-
taken care of that, so that was
Okay.
all set.
John, do you
She
have?
was just a large percentage, I think, of the accrued benefits,
Yeah.
and then when she left, okay.
So has
So-
it gone
Yeah, I think,
Down
we just don't
then?
know what like the liability figure is.
significantly?
You need the latest liability. Someplace here, I thought I had,
That account has been historically underfunded.
Yeah, I remember one year
Well, there's
we
money in
We
it.
had
upped
to
it big
increase
time.
it,
Yeah.
because,
If we're very nice and we ask John Tappan if he can tell us what is in the accrued benefits, I don't have it with me.
36,754,
That's the
So-
current balance of that
correct.
fund, okay.
We don't know what the liability
Yeah,
is.
I
that's
need
the
to know what the
problem.
liability is. Last time I saw it was like 119,000.
Yeah, it's been significantly underfunded.
And the thing is, it's
Yeah.
based on how people are getting paid, and we gave lots of increases, so
Yeah. So it's probably still underfunded.
probably,
My-
it's not completely.
it's only 36.
It's kind of like social security, you
Yeah.
know, but,
Perpetually
My
underfunded.
comment about looking at this with capital reserve fund additions that were equal to last year is not me saying that those capital reserve fund additions are adequate or even
Yeah.
appropriate. It's just kind of
Getting to a
It's a
place.
tactical
focus.
measure for this
Yeah,
year.
just to
Right.
get it to our discussion.
Yeah,
well, if you wanna axe the highway department or adjust them, how about that? Adjust them
let's
accordingly.
not say axe.
So, if you subtract $100,000 out of there,
You hadn't done that.
Do we have any idea, can we ballpark the addition to the benefits, to the personnel administration budget that will come from those raises for the
Fire department?
Fire department.
Yeah, so I did that actually.
You did? I thought you
Okay,
probably had.
so right now, for benefits, so the wages are already included, right?
Yeah.
So like, he's already got the 2 new lieutenants here in terms of wages. We've got 1 firefighter included in insurance and ancillary expenses already. Wait, no, insurance. And so if we add another one, that's an additional $35,000 plus I estimated $36,000 in ancillary, so we're talking about another $71,000 of health and ancillary expenses that need to be added to this operating budget.
you have a question.
No,
Yes.
it's a correction, my mistake. I gave you the number for accrued benefits of what it was at the end of the year,
Oh,
but that did not include what was spent last year but not reimbursed until this year. My very big mistake. The current balance as of the end of last month, is only $7,700. Because last
Oops.
year, more than $29,000 was withdrawn.
Who left to the tune of $29,000?
Police and fire left.
Uh,
Couple of each.
I don't know if
Yeah,
you
there
can
were-
do names, but,
Yeah, I don't think they need names.
'cause I don't think anybody else. Oh, Joanne left.
Yeah,
So Joanne left, you had some firefighters, 2 firefighters that left, and you had three police
police.
officers? So, I think 3, yeah, 3.
2 or 3, yeah.
So that's, you know,
Well, that's something we need to make sure that the Board of Selectmen knows when they're determining that. Warrant article for that. You might add that to your comments.
well,
Yeah.
one thing we need is what's the liability on that
Yeah,
as of, yeah.
Because it will have gone down on some of those payouts.
Well, your biggest payouts are probably gonna be the police chief and the fire chief.
Yes.
hopefully that's not this coming year.
No, you've got 2 more years, I think.
Yeah.
2 more years.
Hopefully.
You might have somebody else in the highway department. I'm just thinking in terms of what it used to be. I think those are your big ones.
Okay, I'll ask Andy about what the outstanding liability is for that.
So that 70 some odd thousand kind of negates the impact of the 100. Did you add the 71 to your?
I can just add it, but. So I'm adding 71,000, oops. I hate those touchpads. 71,000.
So what do we think is a reasonable pay increase?
So with those changes, your increase is 5.02% overall. In terms of the town, 15% increase in tax rate, which is 85 cents.
Now, this analysis doesn't go to the voters.
No, well,
Well, I mean,
Not
some
in my
people have released
presentation.
it before, but
Not
you
in my
don't
presentation.
present it at the deliberative
No, we
session.
stop
Which is
at-
the percent that you talk about at the deliberative session?
the percent we stop at is line 66. So line 66 is where we stop, because the revenue is an estimate. The fund balance hasn't been determined yet, and if we use any of it. War service credits, that's a known already. The county tax, school tax, and state education are big ifs. The amount of tax assessment in lines 91 and 92, that's an estimate. So there's too many estimates.
So what is line 60, what is the change in line 66 with the things we've talked about?
8.2%. You want to raise another $500,000, $497,626.
So that's just arbitrarily changing the deposits to the trust funds and making those two
Right.
budgetary charges.
Yep. So you want to raise another $500,000. So your biggies at the moment is the ambulance, 62,000. The library says it's going down, but it's really going up. Highway department, still up 67,000. Transfer station up 22,000. Fire department up 305,000. Personnel administration up 173,000. Tax collector, elections and registration up 17,000. Those are your biggies. Rest of it's couples of thousands.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the other thing that's not in here, which you noted from Andy, was there's no COLA amount in here.
Yeah.
And I suspect we're gonna give something, but
Does this have the contingency number in there?
20,000.
Okay.
But that comes from the unassigned fund balance, so that's not gonna affect our tax rate.
But I was just,
Just
for
like,
completeness, just remembering it.
Yep,
That need to
there's,
be-
that, in that page, there's an asterisk next to it, and also in line number 58, because if we go with the same kind of logic we did last year, the 100,000 for the town building capital reserve fund is coming out, would come out of the unassigned fund balance, which we only used 23,000 because last year we didn't dump anything into the unassigned fund balance. We took almost $200,000 out, which is not good, so.
Because our expenses exceed our revenue.
Salaries.
Salaries.
Salaries. But, you
I
know,
don't have my detail with me. Why did the town clerk budget go up? Was that largely that we have so many elections this time?
you went from a little over 11,000 to 22,000. You've got some primaries, you've got some
Yeah,
elections.
that's pretty much
Yeah, so
election
that's
stuff.
11,000 right
Yeah.
there, and her increases were 7,000. So,
But she's doing weddings now.
but that won't show up in here, that'll show up on the revenue side,
Hopefully.
so.
Can we spruce up the office a little bit so we can have like a photo op?
You want like the Las Vegas chapel with the,
Like an Elvis cutout?
Right.
the other thing which John is very, very, very talented because he's created a little application that you put in the bond amount and it calculates different things, different scenarios like level bond payment, level principal, and then whatever the interest is. So he's set up, just to give you an idea, because we're looking at a building that's about 1.9 million. And I think if I saved it, no, I didn't save it. So let's say it's 1.9 million and you want a $1.5 million bond. And he's got a graduated scale here. So let's say, like the last one is, what is it, John, 3.65%?
That was the most recent,
Yeah,
middle of last year,
So-
not this year.
he goes up, so 3.6, if the bond rate was the same, you're looking at a principal payment in the first year of $129,750, I guess rounded up to the next 1,000, I guess, Don?
There's some unusual things that can change the very first year.
Yeah,
The first half year is usually not, in fact, I've never seen it to be exactly a half year, it's usually longer than. Plus sometimes there's a premium. And then also, if you make a mistake and you ask for an amount which is not a multiple of 5,000, that odd leftover amount, you have to repay that the first year. So don't do that.
But it gives them an idea in terms of what that particular payment would be.
So how much would that impact this budget?
Well, it would, if it's a full year, it would be the $129,750 plus $77,738 in terms of interest. So we're talking about 207,000. So in terms of tax rates, that's about 50 cents. That's just the
But given
bond.
the timing of what you're talking about in the
Yeah.
project, how much of it is realistically going to impact this?
Well, in terms of that particular conversation we had with them, their expenses for the fall of 2024 could probably be handled, because the other part of this is, and this is just me, would come out of the town building trust fund, like $400,000 of that. So you could cover their expenses for the fall out of that and not even bond until January of 2025, really.
Okay.
So,
I think for the benefit of those people who were not at the select board meeting, there were 5 of us there, I think. The builders for the building were coming, we were talking about timing, and that's what Scott's talking about. If we had to get a bond, given when this would get voted on, and when they might actually put a shovel in the ground. So it probably wouldn't impact this budget.
maybe a little bit, maybe.
Well, that's for sure gonna be a question.
Yeah. It all depends in terms of timing. So depending on what our expenses are up until, because they're thinking about, maybe they break ground in July, whatever it is. They're not gonna start building because you got winter coming on. So they're thinking they'd start in the spring, which means there would be some expenses
Spring
from.
of '25.
yeah, there'd be some expenses between the spring of '25 and, June 30th of '25. So,
Okay,
and the
so,
bonds get floated, if you did municipal bond bank, they get floated in January and June. So you might be able to float it and not have anything hit 2025. Maybe. So,
for a budget, what do we do?
you don't know. See, the problem with this particular group is you don't have all the information until we get to the mid-January. So it's hard for this particular group to say, okay, well, yes, 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 no, 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 because you don't have all the information. So you're kind of like making a decision based on what you know at the time, which is not everything, which is unfortunate, but that's the way it is, so.
But we're not knowingly leaving a number off that could be 200 grand.
Could be, but probably not, because let's say we floated the bond in January, someplace here, John has his, someplace, where is it, Mr. John?
What are you looking for, the dates?
Yeah, so
Does
if
it- does
it's, here we go. So, first year payment. So if we took out a bond in January of 2025, when is the first payment due? I thought that was in here someplace.
If you take out the bond in January, the first payment is August 15th.
Which is the next fiscal year.
Just, so we are not misleading by leaving nothing in there for this, for the bond in this budget. Okay, that was really the question.
The other thing, for complete disclosure, one of the things we're gonna try to do, because the situation that Barrington had with their town hall and the situation that Lee has with theirs, in terms of a rented space and stuff, they're almost similar. And that was one of the selling points, because one of the things we're gonna attempt to do out of Chris Pappas's office is to get a federal grant. Barrington wanted $500,000. They asked for $500,000 in the grant, and they got 1.5, because they had extra money. So supposedly, we can do that too, and ask for whatever we need. So, if, for instance, we ask for $500,000, or whatever we ask for, and we get $500,000, $1.5 million, the federal government's paying for almost everything. So, but once again, we're paying for it actually, but as a group. So it's not free.
It's not really free.
But the thing is, the warrant will be worded that we can bond up to whatever it is, whatever it is. And if we get a federal grant, we'll just, like say, we ask for $500,000, we get $500,000, we only need to bond up to $1 million. So we'll word the warrant article so that we can accept those particular things, so. But that predicates if it passes. If it doesn't pass, it's a moot point.
So I guess in summary, we're safe to not include any figures related to that in this year's budget considerations.
Yes.
Okay. Can we go back to salaries?
Yes.
So, I mean, I think that the fire chief kind of shot for the moon, right? And so what do we think would be a reasonable increase for our fire department? Are we comfortable with like 10%? Say cut it in half, you're not getting 18%, you're getting 9% maybe? And then perhaps we suggest cost of living increases across the board to help kind of make up for the difference?
So,
Yeah,
I'll
what do you think,
attempt,
Eric?
I'll attempt to go first.
Yeah.
So this is part of why I said the conversation has to continue, because I don't think we can reasonably figure this out without him. I stand by my prior statement that everybody should have a COLA, one way or another. But as I understand it, part of his raise is because he's trying to get guys that are making 21 an hour, which roughly correlates to 42,000 a year, up to 25. And that situation is different from people who are, at least for me, is different from people who are already making, say, 75 and trying to get them to 80. So that those are different situations. And I don't wanna say blanket 10%, because we're, for lack of a better phrase, it's apples and oranges, at least to me.
So I wouldn't say like, you know, you have to limit it to 10% for every single employee. I think that like, what I would suggest is like, okay, we're gonna agree to an overall 10% increase in your salary and wages. And chief, you figure out what you're gonna do in order to like
That's it.
allocate it out.
Yeah.
Right, I guess what I'm saying though is, I don't, at least, not in front of me at the moment, I don't know what the effect of getting guys who are at 21 up to 25 is on the whole thing. Whether that's a minor bit, or whether that's a major bit. I just don't know.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't think that we have
I
that
think
level of
that's more of a
information.
major
I don't think we do.
So,
Yeah,
so just, I don't know if you brought this, but
yeah, I have
the,
this, do you,
the
you can take a look.
fire chief is at 4174, lieutenant's EMT is 2485. The other ones was advanced EMT is 2914, and the other two are 3165. So it's not any of the full-time people that are under the 25.
Mhm.
You've only got like 3 part-timers that are under 25. Oh, excuse me, 4. No, 5, 6, sorry. I'm just looking up the list. So I don't think to bring them up to the 25 is gonna be that expensive. It's mostly increases to all the full-time people. So chief is going from 86, almost 87 to 103. That's 16,000. The EMTs, one's going from 54 to 68, that's 14 right there. One's going from 63 to 75, that's 12. 69 to 82 for the other two, so that's what, 13 each?
I mean, I don't think it's for us to say like, which of these firefighters deserve a raise and which don't. I
Yeah.
think that that's the chief's
That's why you
judgment.
give it to him.
And so we can say like, this is your pool of money that we're willing to allocate for you for increases to salary. You choose
That's
who
fine.
you wanna give them to.
Well, but I feel like though, if we're not gonna give him everything that he's asking for, then there needs to be a conversation with him as to, you know, okay, how much do you really need to like not have the wheels fall off the wagon, basically? Like, well, you know, obviously, we would love to give you everything that you ask for, but if we're not gonna be able to do that, at least not immediately, maybe in a few years, you know, like, what do you need to make things not fall apart? So I feel like, you know, to give any sort of recommendation, I would agree with Eric, that we're just kind of making a recommendation in a vacuum. It doesn't have any real substance behind it.
I 100% agree with you, and that's my feeling about this committee generally. Like, maybe you guys feel differently, but, you know, last year, the select board did not take our recommendations, you know, and so like,
To get him.
they just did what they wanted to anyway, much to Mr. Bugby's dismay. He's the one dissenting voice generally.
It takes only 2,
Yeah.
and everybody knows that, it takes only 2.
Yeah.
And usually, I'm the one that is cutting. But the thing is, you know, I'm cognizant, like I said before, cognizant of these people that are on a fixed income, so we keep raising the tax rate. Like this last year, 8.6%, who can afford that year after year? They can't. And it's gonna cause all problems later on, because, you know, they can't stay in town, they're gonna move out. So, you know, maybe we're saving some dollars on the town side, but we're gonna get killed on the school side. So, it's not in our best interest to do that. But I got voted out. Outvoted.
I like the idea of the pool of weight of dollars and saying to the chief, you figure it out. The issue that it raises for me though is the police chief, and this was why it would have been nice to have good figures on who got raises last, was the police chief did not recommend any raises for his people, and he has officers who are making $21 an hour. And if we accept the argument that the firefighter should be making $25 an hour, I don't know why the police aren't making $25 an hour.
That's an excellent
Just a
point.
matter of
The
full-time
issue,
issues, keeping them and so
Yeah.
forth, but
I'm not sure which one it was that brought it up originally, but you've got people doing jobs that are, I have to be careful, that aren't in the public safety kind of realm, like secretaries and stuff, that are making more than your firefighters. Is that right? Should that be happening? So I don't remember which one it was. One of them brought it up and I don't remember which one it was. So that's what they're attempting to do. If these people in town are doing whatever, it's an important job, but it's a secretarial job versus people that go out and risk their lives, why are they making less than these people that, you know, are sitting in the office doing their appointment?
I think that goes
That's
back
even a
to,
different argument than the one I'm making, which
Yeah.
is if you've got a patrolman versus a firefighter, who's to decide which is?
Yeah, well,
Would you
depending
carry a
on the-
gun and be shot at for $20 an hour, right? You know, I keep coming back to that.
or killed.
Or killed, yes, well, we're gonna leave that one off.
One of the most dangerous things is domestics, and there's more
Oh, I
of
know,
them these days.
I know.
Because an officer goes in, he doesn't know, or she doesn't know what they're in for.
But does this committee wanna say anything to the select board about the inequities of giving raises to the fire department?
I think that that goes back to the general discussion about the standardization of pay across the departments within the town.
Right.
And so if we like try to like hone in on that being a primary focus, and I realize that that's like outside generally of our budgetary discussions, but like that's something that is driving the challenges that we're facing in the budget because we don't have standard practices there.
And it's also fair to keep in mind that the police and other departments understand that there is a potential COLA, but that the select board is the one that's going to take care of that, and so they haven't included that in their
Right.
budget
Yep.
for that
Yeah.
exact reason.
And I also think that based on what Andy has shared with us about this historical salary adjustment overview, he mentions that several of the police and fire positions received just like random requests for salary increases due to recruitment and retention purposes. And so maybe, and I'm not gonna speak for the chief, but perhaps he was considering some of those increases that have happened kind of haphazardly when he put his budget proposal together, because if he did have officers that have recently received raises, you know, maybe he's cognizant of that and not requesting additional increases this budget cycle.
Can you speak to that, Scott?
It's possible, I don't know with the
Yeah.
chief, I don't know. But it is true. The people that he has now have got bumps. Lieutenant is one of them, he got a big bump, and he also got to take one of the cars home. So that's his perk, if you will. But yeah, some of the other officers did get bumps, some of them
Keep
left.
them from leaving.
Well, more to
Some-
make
two of
them, it's
them,
equity.
Like, at least they, yeah, to make it more, it's absolutely, you know,
So,
we needed to do that.
Maybe the group does this, they say,
They gotta-
if we go with what you guys have talked about, maybe what you said to the select board, we're not gonna make the decision on the fire department and any of these other places, but you need to look at your payroll practices and make them all the same, something to that effect. So,
Agree,
Yes.
but I think that we still have to have a recommendation here. And, you know, it's not to say everybody deserves an 18% raise, but it's like, okay, you asked for $300,000 for salaries, we're giving you 150, and you figure out what to do with it.
yeah.
One thing, the whole 300 isn't salaries, there's about, I think it's two something it's salaries, and there's another 100 grand in there for stuff.
Auxiliary. Because retirement for group, I think it's group 2, fire brothers and police, is like 38%, something like that.
Oh, I meant in his line item, not in
Oh.
personnel administration, because if we do make a recommendation to reduce that payroll, we can reduce personnel administration.
Yeah.
But as I remember from his presentation, only about 2/3 of that increase is directly payroll.
I've got $290,000 in terms of an increase.
Okay, then
For salaries.
I'm misremembering, I'm
For
sorry.
salaries.
I
Yeah.
thought he had some other stuff he was gonna do. So if it's all salary, excuse me, then I misspoke.
Something else regarding COLA is that it shouldn't be another thing where we shoot from the hip. The COLA should be tied to something, and whether it's social security, or whether it's whatever the state is doing, or whatever
Yeah,
the county is
a
doing.
schedule, or is it just kind of like, oh, we haven't done this in a
But
little while?
what we usually look at is the greater Boston, Andy's got it, but we're in the Boston region, so we usually look at that.
Social Security is giving a 3.2% COLA increase. for reference.
There's also a timing thing here, right? Because our fiscal year isn't necessarily the same as Social Security's fiscal year.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is,
We
I don't
wound
know.
up with that fiscal year anyway, because it seems like everybody else I know goes from like October to September
That's,
30th.
that's the feds.
Yeah.
Some businesses do calendar, some municipalities do what we do, so. It is possible to change it, but it's,
What does the state do? What's the state's fiscal year?
I believe they're on, July 1,
Yeah, they're the same sort of.
so.
So do we want to, like, suggest a percentage for the COLA increase to the select board, or do we just wanna, like, say, you know, we think that all employees deserve a cost of living increase and let them kind of figure it out?
I guess, for me, it's, A, yes, everyone should have a COLA, and B, we, I guess, strongly suggest that you tie it to something and keep it tied to that, so that we're not guessing. And so that next year, when we're doing this, that when all of our paperwork comes out, that we can actually have the COLA line in there
Yep.
from the beginning, as
Yeah.
opposed to still not having it at the end.
Because then we would have like much clearer estimates for like this worksheet, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, which
Yes.
we currently don't have,
Because it's not just the salaries, it's also the taxes.
yeah. What rate did you say that was, Mr. Bugby?
For what?
For the, where you guys have traditionally looked at cost of
It's
living
like the
increases?
greater Boston, because there's a CPI for core stuff and then the overall CPI, because I think, what is it?
I-
Fuel and something is
I
removed.
thought it was CPI-U for Northeast Region.
Okay, all right.
All right, I'll take a look there. 2.7% from a year ago.
So have we settled on our approach with the fire department? I wanted to ask about the wages in the highway, excuse me, the fire department. I wanted to ask about the increases in the highway and the transfer station.
Are you talking about wages specifically, Pat?
And I think those may be, I think both of those cases have to do with particular individuals. The fire depart, the highway department and the transfer station.
Who specifically, what do you,
I thought the increases were relative to somebody changing jobs. I missed his presentation, so I'm kind of floundering here.
so you've got part of Steve's salary is in highway department, streets and highways, streets and administration, and part of it is in the DPW manager. I don't remember the percentage, but you can see part of it's 13,366 in sanitation, transfer station, and 79,914 in highway.
So the increase between the two departments is about $200,000, and 100 of that is paving.
Mm-hmm.
So the other 100, my understanding was most of that was salaries,
Well, they're up a little bit.
but they're not significant.
I don't think so.
Road
okay.
agent assistant, full-time, went up like $5,000.
Okay, so those aren't, there's nothing in that,
The other mechanic, which is Peter, is up $4,400.
okay, so there's nothing significant there other than the paving.
I guess the only one that maybe is significant is this waste management operator full-time. It went up $13,000.
Okay, so there's nothing,
The other thing is, which he had in his notes, the part-time assistant that was supposed to be in the budget last year wasn't put in. So that's an extra $20,000 that wasn't in last year, but the person is still working.
So is there 20 we're missing, or is it in a different budget line item?
You know, it wasn't, he did put it in.
So do we need to add that?
Well, it's in there already under what he's asking for, it's 20,000. But last year wasn't in there.
Oh, it
supposed
wasn't
to
in
be.
last year's budget,
It was
okay.
supposed to be, but,
Okay.
so in terms of other things that are up,
New equipment tools, I think that
Yeah.
that might include that software that he was talking about.
um, could be.
That's
Yeah, that's probably
$15,000.
about, yeah, that's, it was in the financial planning tool, so it might be that. Yeah, I don't remember. I was there too.
But it's not salaries, I don't think that those are
Okay.
material
Okay.
for highway department or transfer station.
Yeah, you're, in the bulky waste, the rate went up, but he's only adding $4,000 for that. So,
Okay, so if we are agreeing to like reduce his funding request for salaries by 50%, that is about 150,000. We're saying also that we're not going to fund in full for paving, so that's $100,000. So $250,000 reduction in the current proposed budget.
And we could also, that 71 that you put in, Scott, for the personnel administration increase for the firemen, we can
Mhm.
cut that in half too.
Okay.
Another 35,000.
Which one was that, Pat? I'm sorry?
personal
Scott had
administration.
put about 71,000 in personnel administration to cover the ancillary costs associated with the increases to the fire
That's
department.
35.
Oh, okay,
So
I
we
see.
can get rid of half of that.
Okay, I see what you're
So I
saying.
can go, yeah.
So,
Down,
going down,
down.
second floor. So, based on all those ifs, overall tax rate would increase 3.96% or 94 cents.
Did you add in COLA? What are we gonna propose for COLA?
You haven't said what that is.
2.7% is that consumer price index, that's up from a month ago, or I'm sorry, a year ago.
But you don't know what your salary pool is.
Yeah,
So that's a,
and just for historical reference, Andy has mentioned that there was, no COLA in, okay, so sorry, 2023, 4% COLA. No COLA in 22 or 21. In 2020, there was a 1% COLA. So just for historical reference. So 3%, I think, you know, if it's up to 2.7% for the consumer price index, we say, you know, 3% COLA is what we're suggesting.
What does that compare to regionally? Like what is, you know, what have the other indexes done since 2020 in terms of COLA? Like, are we with it or are we behind it?
Let me see what it was for 22.
So like if there's, right, so we didn't do a COLA last year. Hasn't done one since 2020?
We did one in
Last year was
23.
Okay,
Yeah.
4%.
4%, but then before that, from 2020 to 2023, there's nothing.
So I think it matters if the reason we didn't do the COLA is because inflation was
Right,
zero,
okay, yeah, right.
or because we chose not to do it.
Yeah.
Then,
Well, that's
did
what
we
I'm
make
wondering.
up
Are we-
for it
are
in
we like-
subsequent
Are we
adjustment?
behind, like, are we behind
Exactly,
inflation or are
so-
we with inflation?
So I guess the issue stated differently is that when the whole step, the larger step program across all town employees is implemented, that you're going to have to naturally figure out exactly what the market rate is at that time, and then properly do your COLA going forward.
the other thing you need to know is just because there was no COLA doesn't mean there wasn't any increases.
Yeah.
So,
Because you chose to pay quite a few people, but.
Merits and bonuses.
Right.
yeah. So we did a 4% for 2023, which would have been agreed upon as part of the budget cycle that concluded in '22. And so in '22, the consumer price index was hovering around 7%. So based on that, like a 4% was gonna be behind inflation at that point.
Yeah, so there's a much larger conversation to be had.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what, like, my head's
Among
starting
all
to
the
spin a little bit,
employees.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean we should shy away from it, it just means we need to have it.
Yeah. Yeah, because if we really are behind on that, and that may be part of the
Yeah.
reason why we're seeing these huge asks now,
Mhm.
because like we're really that far behind.
Exactly, right, and our friend from McGregor said as much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because he was trying his best to keep it down, and now he's shown up and asked us for 3X.
Okay, so reducing paving budget, reducing the wage increases for fire, we're gonna suggest a 3% COLA. And we're gonna revert to contributions for the CIP from the prior year figures. And that's how we're going to bring the proposed percentage down to something that we think is a bit more palatable.
But we don't know what that 3% is dollar-wise.
Right. Unfortunately, we do not. I'm gonna ask Andy for this spreadsheet. I only have it in hard copy. I think he gave it to us last week. It's the payroll worksheet. And so if I get that in Excel, then it would be a pretty easy calculation for me to do a 3% COLA across the board.
Logistically, this is your last meeting before you have to make a presentation.
Yep.
So you have to have a vote at your meeting.
So can we vote on these hypothetical figures?
You can vote on the hypothetical, you're gonna have to figure out exactly
That's
what
what
that
you do.
hypothetical is.
Yeah.
Because what you're gonna present to them is gonna be whatever the bottom line is and the details of what you've been taking notes on. So
Yep.
basically, it's how much are you recommending?
Are you saying it can't change after we leave here, after we vote on
You
it?
can, but you have to meet again to,
So I guess my response to that is, if we have to throw in a number, we can do our best
Yeah.
and throw in a number. But also highlight that cell in yellow and make a note at the bottom for presentation purposes,
Yeah.
saying, this is our best guess, but in reality, there are other things to be considered here.
Mr. Tappan?
A comment. Your recommendation for appropriations to trust and reserve funds as being the same as last year, I think you should note that that is being made without any evaluation of what the needs are to come from those funds.
Yeah, that's what.
Understood?
And that was done last year also, with no evaluation of what was needed to come from those funds. And I'm particularly talking about town buildings,
Noted.
Thank you for that.
where the FPT has $2.4 million with no source planned.
so that's something that, from our conversation last night, I have with John, that's something that the board has to do beforehand, to go through each one of those things. I highlighted a little bit, go through each one of those things, instead of saying, okay, well, we're gonna do the same thing as last year, or whatever it is. Go through each one of those entries and say, okay, are we actually going to do this? If the answer is yes, then we have to plan for it. So we might say, hey, we're jumping 175,000 into the fire, equipment, but really we need 225,000. That,
Sorry, Grant.
are you trying to kill yourself or kill me?
Oh, Grant.
So going through those is gonna be something we have to do beforehand, so we know what those particular amounts that we're gonna do. Which, once again, you're being asked to make a decision based on what information you have, and you don't have that information.
That's why I suggested going back to last year's numbers just for presentation purposes.
Well, we do have the financial planning tool. John sent me it, so we can take a look at those ourselves if you want. there's what, like 8 different tabs.
No,
There's more than 8, well,
it's like 2,000.
2,000 tabs, okay.
2 dozen, she said, not 2,000.
2,000 tabs.
We probably don't to the 725. The 2000s is kind of a big number.
Were you gonna
So
say something, Eric?
just based on,
Sorry.
just based on what we've done previously in terms of across the boards and stuff like that, we've put in 50, 60,000, so maybe if you put in 70,000, that will include the increases plus the ancillaries. It's, at least for me, that's my best guesstimate.
For a
For
COLA
what?
number.
For a COLA number.
He's saying 70 grand.
Okay,
That's my best guess, based
Yeah.
on what I have. Because I
so,
don't have what the total payroll is.
so here's what I'm gonna try to do. I'm gonna take this firework sheet. So if we're gonna propose, I'm gonna try to do like a back of the napkin calculation based on what
Yeah.
he's proposed, and I'm
That's
just
fine.
gonna like half it by 50%.
Okay.
And so then I'm gonna put those figures into this one,
Mm-hmm.
so hopefully I can maybe calculate reasonably some
Okay.
of the ancillary expenses associated with these.
Okay.
So I'll do that like before the presentation on Monday, so I can
Okay.
hopefully have a reasonable figure for some of these numbers.
Okay.
But in terms of what we're gonna vote on tonight,
We're not gonna be voting on an actual figure.
You're gonna have to.
we have to,
You have to, because you're not gonna have anything official from this particular committee. So basically, you'd be standing up there saying, Stacy Waite says this, basically, that's what you're gonna say.
Yeah, that's what
Because
I'm
if you
gonna
don't
say.
do a, Stacy Waite says,
And they're gonna say, oh, we don't care what you say anyway, we're gonna do this.
well, I won't say that we do whatever we want. We do based on what the information, because there's gonna be information that comes in after you make your presentation.
Yeah.
So we make our decision, at least for me, I make my decision on what you say, but also in terms of the other information that comes in after us.
Yeah.
So I don't ignore this particular group.
Just for future
So-
planning reference, I mean, would there be benefit to change sort of this cycle of meetings to align with when information and numbers become available?
I don't know if you could
It
do
would
that.
make these recommendations a little more meaningful.
I think this group would have to look in, as well as the select board, in terms of looking how that would look. Because our first budget hearing is the first part of January.
see, I think what they've done historically is they've started with a date for the, well, it used to be town meeting now deliberative session, and backed up with, okay, if that's the date of this meeting here, okay, we need to have 3 public hearings for the budget. And we have to have a presentation from the budget committee. And it's kind of, they start at the end and backwards, so I don't know that we could do, it's a great suggestion, I don't know that
Yeah.
there's room in the schedule for it.
The first budget hearing, I think, is, I don't know if I put it in here.
I'm just kind of wondering, it's just,
It's something to look into, because
This
that's
doesn't
always
work
been a
very
problem
well.
with this
Yeah,
particular
This doesn't
group.
work very well.
This is the same discussion we always have at our last
Yeah,
meeting.
exactly.
And we have gone to a Saturday meeting before the budget.
Yeah,
All
we have.
years before that.
No, I didn't put them in yet. But there's 3 budget hearings, the last one being, whatever, that January, whatever it is. January 22nd, I believe, is the 3rd one. That's when we have to decide what we're doing. We have to finalize the budget. There's one the week of New Year's, and then there's another one either the next week or the week after that. So basically, this group would have to give their information before that first budget hearing, the first part of January, which means you're working through the holidays, which usually people say, ain't happening. So, and the last meeting that the Board of Selectmen have is the 11th. We have one on the 18th, but it's for the building project. So we're not meeting the week of the Christmas or the week of, whatever, January 1st. So logistically, it's very, very tight. It's a dang holiday season. If they didn't have the holidays, but it is what it is.
We can recommend cutting the holidays from our budget, right?
You
That's
could,
what we
you
are.
could.
Except we just added one, so.
And we recommend anyway, and so they're gonna make the decision.
I have some advice that doesn't involve any actual numbers, so that Stacy doesn't have to do anything with a spreadsheet on her laptop. But some of the lines in here are organizations that are 501c3s. It's not us, right? And I know for my day job that 501c3s are supposed to make their tax returns public one way or another. Sometimes they put it on the website, sometimes you have to ask them for it, but they still have to give it to you.
Mhm.
I feel like it would probably be good policy, if we weren't doing it already, to, if somebody's gonna ask us for money, that they should have their most recent tax return with them.
Some of them already do that. I
Okay.
don't know if every single, Denise is the one that collates those.
Okay.
And I think on your Google Drive, Steve, I'm
Mhm.
not bothering Stacy.
Yeah, no, go
On your
ahead.
Google Drive, there's the social agencies, they have submissions.
Mhm.
So if you take a look in there, some of them already do it.
Let me
Right, so I guess some do, some don't.
I'm not, I don't know. Some,
Yeah,
the last time I
that's-
looked, some did and some didn't.
That's my advice, is that if they're gonna come here and ask us for
Yeah.
money, then they should be at least providing their tax return.
And I don't think we said, hey, provide your tax, they're not gonna say no.
Right.
So, but you just have to ask, but some of them
Yeah.
already included.
I know, not tax returns, but some of them are also, you know, just including like a financial report, like an audited financial statement too, so would you accept that?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, that's because
Yeah, I guess.
some of them have, let me see.
The return itself is under penalty of perjury, but I figure the audited is probably good enough because it's independent, right? How do you feel
Yeah.
about auditors? Yes.
I like auditors,
Okay.
I love auditors.
I don't like auditors, no.
Well, then you should leave, Mr.
I don't like
Bugby.
auditors because I've always had the impression that they're checking the books and basically they're just checking certain things and they're not checking everything. And one of the things that's come back to bite us
That's correct.
is some of the things that they've missed.
Well, if you want to pay an auditor to literally check everything,
Yes.
I think you're gonna have a
Well,
cost-benefit
Yeah.
analysis
Price will be way
argument.
higher.
so really, I'm expecting a forensic audit and all I get is a regular audit. That's what people
If you
think.
want forensic, you gotta pay for it.
I know, but I'm
The
cheap.
real problem with municipal audits is there's only 2 firms in the whole state that do it, so the quality of the product
Yep.
is kind of,
Well,
It's a
Yes,
duopoly.
they
or two.
not many.
Because-
Plotzik and who else is still doing them?
Vashon and Cloquet, and there's another one that Nottingham uses. They like that particular group. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, because Plotzik and Vashon have been doing it forever, but
Yeah, we don't like Vashon. They're not good, at least for us. So,
it's a pretty small pool you're choosing from.
yes, unfortunately, I'm on the record, but they know. And there's certain assessing firms that we will never use again. No names, but
Mhm.
that's another thing we do and more of in terms of when we go out for bids for stuff. Some of those particular services that we used for years and years and years until we started saying, hey, no, every 3 years we have to go out to bid these particular things. And it behooves us, because we were paying an awful lot of money for audits, and then we went out to bid, and ooh, wow, that number dropped by like $6,000. It's like, oh, that's nice. But until you ask,
Yeah, no comparison.
and then there's firms like we use Back Bay Computers, and they haven't raised their rate for like 6 years. So, you know, are we getting a good deal? Probably, you know.
Maybe not year one.
Well, that's the
But
other
you
thing.
are.
When we go out to bid, we ask, what's the rate in year 1, 2, and 3? So we know what it is, so they're not like lowballing us year 1 and then they jack it up years 2 and 3.
Mm.
So we usually ask for, what's your rate, year 1, 2, 3? And there's always an increase, but it's not usually that much.
So while Stacy's still working on this, Scott, if I recall correctly, you had a ballpark estimate for how much you thought the new Starbucks was gonna bring in?
I did? That's a Karen Rossi question.
That's a Karen Rossi question.
Probably,
You said like $500,000.
no, I don't know if it'd be that much. You're probably looking, maybe close
In
to it,
taxes?
maybe, no, not,
What are you talking, bring
assessment,
in?
assessment.
Oh.
Maybe 400 to 500, maybe. Market Basket, just give you a reference, they bring in 8 million in assessed value for that strip. So
For that
Oh, for the whole plaza?
For the whole
Yeah,
plaza.
'cause they own
So
the whole
the
plaza.
Starbucks is, so maybe. The thing is, that's the first entity to go in, but there's supposed to be a little strip mall behind it. I don't know, it's gonna be kind of close to that, I don't know.
Restaurant and
Yeah, it's
stuff.
gonna be some kind of restaurant and other little shops and stuff, so. But of course, the restaurant and the Starbucks couldn't go in until the water line was in, because those are restaurants and they need a reliable water supply.
Mhm.
The water at that particular location, based on the old mobile station was there, that leaked all the MTBE into the water
It wasn't
table.
typical.
You know, so they're waiting for the water line to come from Reef Five Corners, so they'll be customers of the Durham water supply, so they'll be customers.
That work's all done now, right?
Yeah,
So, but yeah, but Karen Rossi would give you a better, in terms of what that,
Yeah.
she could tell based on what the building permit that they pulled, how much they anticipate it to be, and just multiply that by the tax rate, and you'll find out how much they'll bring in, so.
So Starbucks, a restaurant, and then is that it? Or
No, there's
is there
more
room for
stuff.
more?
It's a little strip mall out back there, so,
they just haven't built it
they
yet.
haven't built it yet, because they wanted to get, I don't know if they wanted to get Starbucks in, but they were waiting for the water line, so they'll probably start in the spring. Starbucks should be done.
Do you know if there's been any submissions of,
No, I haven't asked either.
How many storefronts are there planned?
Karen Rossi could tell you. She's full of information.
It's a totally different question. How tall are they allowed to build the building?
Ooh, I do not know. I don't know. The reason they would limit the height based on the fire equipment that we have, because we do not have a ladder truck. If there's a fire
So
that's
it's
on
gonna
a
be
top
2
building, you have
levels.
to borrow some other.
So if you have a
because I think it's probably
two-story
dirt.
building, you need a ladder truck.
If you have a fire on the roof, yeah, you do.
So what about the urgent care building? Because that is over 2 stories if I
You
recall
probably,
correctly.
if there was a fire on the roof, they'd probably have to get Durham's fire truck, ladder truck to come, so.
So in fact, we can have a building taller than 2 stories, but we have to play nice with Durham.
Well, they have mutual agreements, so they support each other, so.
Okay.
But yeah, I do not know. That's another Karen Rossi question. She could tell you. But yeah, I don't think we could ever have like
I wonder
a,
how tall is that?
well, you need a ladder truck to get up
The one
there.
with Douglas, yeah,
Yeah, you'd have to get a ladder truck.
I want to say it's 3 stories.
3 stories,
I
okay.
don't know.
So that's
I
what
could
I'm
be wrong.
wondering, if 3 is okay,
Well, the fire chief approved it, so it must be
Right.
okay.
Yeah,
But
because they can,
yeah, but
it's
have
not high.
have a conversation with him, because if there's a fire on the roof, I don't believe he has any equipment to get up there. So we'd have to have the ladder truck from
Just
another
the
department.
regular ladders, but.
Well, I suppose, but that's
not-
like 30
yeah,
feet, 30-foot
yeah.
ladder? I don't know.
Bring in the bucket.
I
bucket
guess
trucks.
the reason I asked is my thing about the town that I grew up in, when they built up the town center, because when I first moved there, it was not built up, but when they did it, they put in a 2-story retail building. So you had restaurants on the bottom floor, but then you
Mhm.
had, dentist, chiropractor, professional offices on the second floor.
Mm.
And of course, by having the second floor of the building's worth more
Hmm.
and generates more tax revenue.
Well, that's the thing that Lee needs, because they don't need any more residential, because that costs us even more, but commercial property, commercial places to build in are very limited. We expanded the commercial zone up Route 4, up to the intersection, was the Old Mill Road and Sheep Road. But there's some problems with some of those particular locations. They don't have 3-phase power, you'd have to bring 3-phase power in, which is very expensive. So buildings kind of, if you're doing a commercial operation, that's kind of what you want. So that's a problem, but the only other thing I've heard of on the other side
It
of,
was too skinny there.
well, it goes back a little bit, because it's wet on one side too.
Yeah.
On the other side of, I don't know what's there, it used to be Friendly Pets, and then the furniture place, I don't know.
It's a radiology place.
Friendly
Okay.
Pets is still there.
So on the other side of that, there's a dog park out back, but there's a lot in the front there.
Yeah.
And the last thing I heard from Karen was there's another convenience store, gas station, thinking about going there. It's like, how many of those do
On
we
that
actually
end.
We
need?
don't need
Yeah.
another
Yes.
one.
So, but, you know, if they wanna build there, that's up to them.
Well, that's kind of, I've always wondered about like some of these properties that are like right at the circle there. Like the place that used to be like whatever greenhouse or,
Oh, yeah.
and then there's the other place on the other side of the circle that's like whatever, I don't even know what it is. It's like that white building that's kind of beat up and it's like, you know.
Oh, that's where the antique
The
store
antiques,
is.
the antiques, yeah,
Oh.
that's what it is. I mean, does anybody?
It used to be down
go
further,
there?
and then Walgreens bought that
Yeah.
and moved them up,
That's-
along with Lee Circle Grocery.
I mean, because that
used to be
seems
there,
like,
but They,
if these properties are just
Have
kind of
that
sitting
property.
there, that seems like a wasted opportunity for the town.
The
to-
Caloris family owns that.
they would have to agree to sell
Yeah,
it,
they own
obviously.
the Lee Circle Grocery, the place that you
A
can get.
lot.
Yeah. They own all the way back too.
And Bobby bought up further, which he has that piece of property with his,
Yeah, well, it's his, what was his
Food.
mother was the antique place, but she passed away, didn't she?
So it just sits there?
It's what?
So it just sits there?
they moved all that down when Walgreens went in. It used to be
Yeah.
down where Walgreens.
But the antique
Right.
place isn't open anymore. I thought she passed away this way.
Oh, is it recently?
Oh, I haven't seen anybody.
Like, I just
I thought
see
it
it
was-
sit there, I haven't
Oh,
actually seen any
maybe it's
vehicles
gone.
parked there. or-
Okay, sorry guys.
Right.
Are we good?
Okay, I think we might be nearly good here. So in order to estimate COLA of 3%, I am going to take this payroll worksheet that Andy has provided. It's got a townwide total here of $2.1 million for annual salaries for fiscal year '23. So I'm just going to take that $2.1 million and multiply it by 3%. And that's gonna be my estimated COLA increase, that's gonna be a net increase for the overall salary line items.
Okay.
So I'm gonna use that as my figure, that comes out to approximately $66,000 of an increase for a 3% COLA for everyone across the board.
That's not including ancillary.
That's not including ancillary. If you'd like me to include ancillary, Mr. Bugby, I can use
Oh,
this
I'm
fiscal
not-
year total cost instead as my estimate. Maybe that would be a more accurate figure.
Because some of them, the ancillary costs are going to be way more expensive than others.
So if I use this fiscal year '24 total cost, which includes ancillary expenses, then that puts me at $81,000 for a COLA increase. And so if we'd like to be conservative, perhaps I should use that figure instead.
Okay.
So if I do that and also make the reductions that we discussed, the 50% reduction for the fire and also the $100,000 reduction for paving, including the COLA, that puts us at $5,584,000, which is a reduction from what was proposed. Let me just calculate that real quick.
What did you get, 5 million what?
5,502,000.
Oh, okay, mine's a little bit less, but.
So, based on those, so reducing fire wages, reducing paving, including a COLA of 81,000, puts us at a reduction of the overall operating budget of $253,000.
Now, did you end up with the number that I gave, that Scott had, the 35,000 of ancillary on the increases? The budget that we got does not include any ancillary on the increases for the
Right,
fire.
and so I estimated those additional ancillary increases to be, what did I say, 71,000?
But we only need half of that.
Yep. Well, I don't know if it would necessarily be half of that because some of that's healthcare.
Now, are we talking about on the raises of the COLA?
We're talking about just estimates for ancillary, which don't include either of those at this point.
Correct, okay, I see. Okay, so your 81 includes, okay.
So, let's see here.
So does that change not half of the 71?
I think what she's saying is she's lumping the,
Okay.
Well, hold on, I didn't put the 71 in here, so I think I need to add that in, actually.
actually, you only need to do half of it, because we're only recommending half the wage increase. The 71 was if we went with the whole 18%.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying here is that our estimated health insurance is $35,000, right? Wait,
Mhm.
wrong one, I got too many papers here. Okay, estimated health for a new full-time firefighter is 35.
Yes,
One has already been included in the proposed budget, so I need to add in 35.
yes,
And then, my ancillary expenses that I estimated were 36, but if we're having that, then that is only 18. So I need to add 35 and 18, okay. So let's see what my final number is with those. 35 and 18, okay. All right, so, that puts us at 5.6 million, which, what is the change from what was originally estimated? So that only puts us at $118,000 difference from what was estimated because of all those ancillary expenses. So Mr. Bugby, if you're interested in the total operating budget number, I'm happy to give it to you, so you can put it in.
I'm not coming out with the same thing as you've got. I've got 5.5 million. I'm not getting 5.6.
Did you include COLA?
Yep, 81,000.
Mm-hmm,
So in terms of the changes I've got to the line items,
mm-hmm.
I've got to personnel administration, I've got an addition of 35,000 plus 18.
Yep,
I've got 81,000 added on to other government,
for COLA?
Yep.
Yep,
and then I've got a reduction in the fire department by 150,000.
so let me just, that should be about right, yeah.
Okay, and then I've got a reduction in highway of 100,000.
Yep.
And that's all my reductions. I come up to 5.5 million. Rest of the numbers are the same. Based on those and the other reductions, you're looking at a tax rate of an increase of 4.52% or $1.07. The town rate goes up 13%, increase of 73 cents.
So for fire, the reduction, if we reduce it by 50%, the reduction is actually 145,000.
Okay, can tweak it. It's still gonna, because we're off 100,000 someplace. So,
Let me make sure that I got that for the paving. Paving, 200.
so with the reduction in paving, it goes down to 782,000.
Are you talking about Steve's overall budget?
Yeah, for highway only. Last year was 417, this year it's 782 with 100,000 taken off.
All right.
Plus all of our bonds are paid off. Yay!
Yay, that should help, right?
All right, what do you have for Steve's overall budget?
Highway department, $782,325.
Okay, yeah, I got that too.
Okay.
All right, so let's look at fire now.
fire, I've got a total of 870,152. Yes, we have to celebrate these little,
It is, yeah.
Okay, I have 861,988.
okay, for fire?
Yes.
So I've got, so his original was 101,51,52 minus 145,000. Right?
101,5152.
Yeah, one, yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, so something's off.
Well, obviously, Mr. Bugby.
Well,
Miss Stacy live right here.
I will try to find it and fix it. Just to make sure we all have our figures straight. Or we could just go with your figure, Mr. Bugby, and I'll figure out my error afterwards.
well, it could be mine too, so, you know. So basically what you're voting on is you're recommending a budget of, if these numbers are correct, $6,484,033. That's what you're recommending.
That's inclusive of the CIP items, right?
Correct.
Forcing the CIP items back to, deposits back to what they were last year, which were a total of 775,000.
I believe
So-
so.
That's the other thing that's problematic with that whole thing, is because we should be trying to keep those deposits as level as possible, but they fluctuate an awful lot.
Well, that's because they kind of fall in the same category with the paving budget, they're the low-hanging fruit.
Well, we tried the other way, and it just doesn't work. Well, we got $50 from here and $20 from there. It's a pain.
I don't know,
So-
Mr. Bugby, I think I stand by my figures here.
Okay, well, we're off. So highway department, excuse me, fire department, you start with 100, so 1,015,152 minus 145,000 is 871,52. And do you have the 1 million?
Hold on, I'm getting 870. Is that what you got?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Wait, if I just said
871,52, yep.
that.
Yay, so, okay.
All right,
now we
hold on.
match.
Let's see here.
But I think one of the things we need to do as a town is look at revenue, in terms of other revenue. And we started in terms of doing more grants and stuff for things. But one of the things we've talked about in the past is getting somebody that does grant writing, that's their job. So there's all kinds of grants out there, and if you don't know about them, you can't apply. But if you've got somebody that's their business, they would be in touch with other people that do that. They say, oh yeah, you can apply for whatever. Because right now, the police and the fire chief are the ones that basically do most of the grant writing. Are they grant writers? No, they do a pretty good job, so. But for some of these other things, like the one that we talked about in terms of getting from Chris Pappas's office, once you get the boilerplate and all the things they're looking for, you've got basically everything you need to apply for other federal grants too. So. And the thing is,
Change the name, send it
yeah,
in.
basically, that's what they do. So once they get all that particular, because they want to know, you know, describe your town, what is this particular project? That's basically the thing that gets changed, is what the project description is.
Right.
So.
All right, Mr. Bugby,
What?
let's see here.
You know, Mr. Bugby was my father, you know that. So, just be aware of that, so.
You don't like it when I call you that?
It's not exactly
Sir.
one of the most endearing terms I
Mr.
hear.
Bugby, sir.
No, that's even worse.
Just kidding.
That's even worse.
All right, hold on, I double counted something now, now you got me all flustered here.
Oh,
Ruh-roh.
My strategy is working, Stacy.
Yeah,
I'm just over here chatting with this end of the table, so.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
killing time. I think you should find out from Karen what's going into that plaza over there and let us know at the next,
Do you know what? Tom Murdoch, you can ask her too.
yeah, I could.
she's very
I
good
could
with
probably just
questions.
text her right now.
Yeah, she'll probably answer you.
I know.
Facebook
She
Messenger
does.
works really well too.
Yeah.
She's very responsive.
She always, I
Well,
shoot a
don't,
text to her.
don't,
text her
yeah,
back.
if you're doing it in a personal
Usually that's when I'm
capacity.
like volunteering for something.
Okay, because officially, it's one of the things that
No.
at least we try not to do, for those particular
After
people that aren't
hours.
working.
Right, yeah, no, I don't,
'Cause
do
usually-
that. I don't do that.
Because I asked her for this information about the assessment, I think it was the next day after we met, and I said, I'm looking for this particular thing, but don't do anything until Monday. So, and
Yeah, you
unfortunately,
just-
or fortunately, she responded back and says, okay, Monday's good for me, so she didn't have to do that, but
Right.
that's one of the things that we try to do, because, of course, the department
Yeah,
heads,
no,
they want to,
they're
they
not-
want to help, but
Yeah, off.
they have a life too, so leave them alone, unless it's like, trees down, Steve,
I have-
you gotta cut
I
it
have,
because no
like-
traffic can get through, versus, Steve, I need this information, and I need it today, and it's Saturday, so, no. So,
No, I never do that.
Just like,
Sometimes personal stuff.
well, that's
Personal
different,
stuff.
that's
Yeah.
different.
It's usually-
I was in,
Right.
they were doing a cemetery tour, the Historical Society was doing a cemetery tour in the cemetery across from town center. And we hear crack, crack, boom, boom, and then a whole bunch of trees over by the parish house, we're just moving all over the place. So after the cemetery program, I went over there, I drove over there, and the big tree, the ash tree, was at the end there.
Yeah.
Limbs started to fall because it's been infested with emerald ash borer and it's
Yeah,
done, it's
Yeah,
dead.
it's dead.
So I sent an email to Steve and I said, it's Saturday, don't have to look at it right now, but on Monday, can you come in and take a look at this? So, and he didn't respond, which is good, but, he could have, but he has a life too.
Yeah.
He gets called out enough in terms of snowing and sanding and stuff like that.
I like looking at his, he does Facebook posts with like
Kids are
his
good.
good kids.
Oh, yeah, his
stuff
kids,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
Cute.
Yeah.
They do
Is she the
little
one,
things.
his daughter's the one that does the writing? Is it writing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but yeah, I don't know if I'd like his job. He gets to play with lots of big machinery, but he can get called out, do plowing, do sanding, it's like, we we're talking about that at work. That, up here, we're ready for that kind of stuff, but down in like North Carolina,
Oh, they're
2 inches of snow, oh my God,
lost.
everybody closed down, we can't go anyplace until it melts.
I was in Atlanta one year when it actually snowed.
Yep,
I was at some conference or something like that. And it just crippled. It was
Everything.
just this tiny little bit of snow. They had bulldozers out trying to push the snow and stuff. They don't have any plowing stuff.
no, they don't, no.
It just crippled them.
Yeah.
And we went out driving, just like, we're in a little bit of
We're used to
snow.
it.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the first snowfall here so we can see how many idiots go off the road. Because we had that little ice thing, it was a little ice stuff, 2-3 weeks back.
Mm.
And I drive to Pease and there's like 3 or 4 cars off the road. It's like, come on, guys,
Okay, Mr. Bugby,
You're interrupting our social time.
Sorry,
Ms.
okay.
Ms. Waits.
thank you.
Ms. Waits.
I'm a Mrs., by the
Mrs.
way,
Waits.
I'll
Oh.
take Mrs.
Okay, note that in the minutes,
Yeah.
it's Mrs.
Mama waits.
Okay,
Wait for you.
$5,645,000.
But please say yes. So what's that number?
So we can,
$5,645,000.
I thought it was 5, I thought it was 5.
5,510,560.
All right, well then we're just going with your number.
Well, whatever, you can do whatever you want. And the total, at least for what I have, is, this is the number that you have to have the vote on. You're recommending $6,484,033.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the operating budget now.
Oh, okay. You gonna do the other ones separately, or?
No, we just have to do one vote on the total.
One vote on the
budget, including
total.
CIP. And the,
I have not included CIP figures in mine.
Oh, you, oh, well,
I was just
it's
talking about
whatever the
the
group wants to
operating.
do, but usually you.
I was just
include
talking about the operating budget.
those. Okay. But that's another $973,469.
For the CIP items.
Yep.
Yeah,
So if you wanna separate them, that's fine, but the total is the $6,484,033.
okay. So I'm gonna come over here and sit next to you, Mr. Buckley, so I can look at your computer.
I don't know if my relatives would like that, so.
Okay, all right, so with all of the adjustments that we have discussed,
Yeah, you can do it, go ahead.
we are looking to approve a total budget recommendation to the select board of $6,484,033. Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's approved. That's what we will be recommending to the select board on Monday, December 11th. We will also be recommending that they standardize employment practices across our departments in the town. We will also be suggesting that they explore consolidating services with neighboring towns or possibly becoming a service provider to other neighboring towns. Any other suggestions that we wanted to make? Better record keeping?
Standardizing the CPI place that we go, I think we do that already, but you might wanna mention that.
Talking about the COLA
Yeah.
Okay, yes,
across the board.
And also, if it's possible to change the timing of when this committee meets versus when the budget is approved,
okay,
I think that's something that, I think maybe we could get a little bit more, because,
maybe a week.
I don't know, we can see. But I think that's one of the hamstrings of this particular group, is because you're being asked to make a decision on something where you don't have all the information.
Yeah.
And that's difficult. At least the part that I value of this particular committee is the different viewpoints.
Yep.
Because the select board isn't all-knowing, all-seeing, or whatever. It's,
Well-
for me, I like to hear what everybody says in terms of comments and stuff, so.
And also we get such a moderate turnout of citizenry.
Hey, we've got one. Come
Which is
on.
one more than we usually have.
That's 100% more than what we.
let it be
Yeah.
known that one citizen of Lee was here in addition to the ABC committee.
So in your presentation, are you including like what we talked about with the fire department and so forth? If
Regarding,
that's a change, like you're gonna say we're recommending
yeah,
half and so forth?
yeah, yeah. Just like last year, I'm gonna talk about like notable increases. That's certainly one notable increase, and so
Right.
I'll mention that we did not approve the full request from the chief. So, yeah, I'll mention that.
Oh, that's-
I'm gonna try to have these slides to you guys on Saturday, and then if you can take a look on Sunday and let me know what any comments you might have.
And you're all invited to the meeting on the
Yes, I'll be here
11th, if
Monday.
you want to make a comment or whatever.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay, and Mr.
We're
Buckby,
well
or
supported.
Scott, can you send me that spreadsheet that you were working on?
She knows my name.
She said Scott.
Of course I
Yes,
know
I
your
will.
Mr.
name.
Buckby.
Thank you.
Oh, God.
Oh, here we go.
It's somewhat unrelated, but a thing that came up at CIP. What is the condition of the roof of this building? Do you know?
Well, it was built in 2002, and it's got like 25-year shingles on it. They replaced some of the sections with metal. But yeah, at some point, I think it's in the financial planning tool.
We talked about that, you're gonna hear about this from
Okay.
Mr. Sederholm on Monday night.
Yep.
But what we didn't have was a lot of the current information that that we don't have for this committee. And one of the things was, what is the true remaining lifespan of the roof of this building?
Steve would have to answer that. They bring us things when things leak and stuff, but they haven't done anything lately. The big
That was-
thing,
You're gonna hear about that Monday from
the
Dave.
big thing for this building is the air gaps in the windows. We're looking at 25,000, something like that.
For the roofing, Steve said that he's seen the roof and that most of the roofs have no granules left on the shingles.
Usually they put on 25 years and you're getting close. But,
And it's not just the windows, it's also the doors.
So,
oh yeah, the one downstairs is off.
do we need to adjourn?
Guess you have to
Yes.
adjourn unless you want to keep the meeting on.
Motion to adjourn,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Approved, we're adjourned, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
And if you don't race out of the